I live in DC now. I do what I call mansion hopping. I go from these giant houses to the next giant house, house sitting. So I'm like a nomad. I've moved 5 times in 7 months, but I get to live in pretty sweet cribs. Yeah, I'm kind of tired of moving. I think my dad's kind of tired of helping me move, but it's pretty good. I have a 5-month consecutive stand of keeping my stuff in one place now. So I'm excited about that.
That's awesome. 5 months.
Yeah, 5 whole months. I grew up in Manassas, which is a suburb of DC. I grew up playing sports, have an older brother. My mom probably hated living with 3 guys because all we did was sports, watched it, played it, sports video games, everything. Mostly soccer when I was a kid, also baseball, basketball, and then as I got older, I got into tennis. Once I got into high school, I was on the tennis team. And it was my sophomore year of high school when I was really about to be on the varsity team that I started to feel pain in my hip. And I kind of pushed it aside, and then several months later, I finally saw a doctor, and I was diagnosed with Ewing sarcoma, which is a rare form of bone cancer. I didn't understand. I was standing in his office, facing my mom. She was in the room with me. I was wearing a hospital gown, butt naked under the gown. Now the gown was in front. This is an important distinction as I'm facing my mom. And he's on my back behind me, pushing on the hip bone, which is where the pain was. And there was a bruise and a permanent bump there. And he's pushing for a minute, and I'm still thinking it's a stress fracture, like a sports-related injury. And he said, "There's definitely something growing there." And I didn't know what that meant, so my mom had to tell me when we got home. It probably sucked. But I would end up needing a year of treatment, including chemoradiation and surgery. And I didn't really let it affect me much. I created this delusion that I was superhuman, and it served me well in not getting down about the cancer and not ever thinking it could kill me. That thought really never crossed my mind. Didn't matter what my survival chances were. I knew I was just better than everyone. You know, in my head I knew. So I handled it relatively well. I was cancer-free. I went back to high school. I had just started my senior year. This superhuman delusion that I had created continued, and these rules that I created to live by continued. So, for example, no complaining was the one most prominent on a day-to-day basis. And so that continued. I wouldn't allow myself to even talk about cancer. I wouldn't bring it up. I tried to go each day without letting it scroll through my thoughts. It's impossible. You can't go an hour without it scrolling through your thoughts, but these were my goals. And everyone in high school knew of my story, obviously. In high school, word spreads pretty quickly. It was in college that things were a little different. I went to the University of Virginia, and there were about 8 people from my high school who also went with me, but no one in my dorm from my high school. And so I was not allowed to talk about it, yet after a shower, for example, I would walk down the hall without a shirt on, and I have a 15-inch scar. So people would either look away politely or pretend not to notice, but I couldn't tell them, and so it created this invisible barrier between me and everyone else. And I felt kind of isolated. After my first semester at college, I went back for my 18-month checkup, which is part of the normal protocol. And I was mostly there to show off just how healthy and strong I was. I'd been going to the gym, building up some strength, and right before I left, during my physical, they were checking my blood results on the computer. And I hear my nurse practitioner clicking away on the mouse, click, 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 click. The clicking stopped, and she said, they have you red flagged. Your platelets are dangerously low. They had gotten down to 25,000, and normal is between 200 and 300,000 per unit of blood. So in that instant, I tied my invisible cape a little tighter, and I fell back on these rules that had never gone away. And I knew that whatever it was, I would survive it. I thought I would need a bone marrow transplant. Just the idea of an aspect of my bone marrow failing like that made me believe I would need one, and I was right. I had myelodysplasia, which is sort of a leukemia, pre-leukemia, and I got an umbilical cord stem cell transplant. So that is when they take these cells from, in my case, a girl born in 1999 in the state of New York with the blood type O positive. It's the only thing I'll ever know about her. And they froze them, and then when they saw that I was a close match, they thawed them and gave them to me through an IV. Her mother donated the cord to research, I guess, or for this purpose. Some hospitals have this ability to freeze cords and some don't. It's unfortunate because of all of the benefits that these could provide. Most people probably aren't even aware of it. It's unfortunate also that I can't contact this girl who's now, I guess, about 14. It would be cool for them to know that their donation saved a life, but because of privacy laws and just keeping a database of all that contact information, they don't have that. However, this is super interesting. I have what's called thalassemia trait, which was genetically given to me by my donor. That means that my red blood cells are smaller than normal. So I have anemia. It doesn't really affect me. It just keeps my hemoglobin around 12 instead of the normal 15. The point is that it's rare enough that the mother, if she heard all of this, would know that that was the cord blood donation in all likelihood, because it's unlikely that O positive, New York, 1999, thalassemia trait happened in anyone else. Now, here's the even crazier story. There was a certain drug I got to treat Ewing sarcoma. It was called cytoxan, cyclophosphamide, and that was what caused the second cancer. There was a 1% chance of that, and that was also the drug that treated me for my second cancer. Now, even to go further, the bone marrow transplant, Ewing sarcoma travels through the bone marrow, through the blood cells, or bloodstream. So if I was to have a recurrence, the bone marrow transplant pretty much wiped out that possibility.